Okay, so you've been on the internet and you've been hearing people saying left and right, let them. You get it, because not focusing on or obsessing over the things and behaviors of other people that you can't control is obviously healthy. But it's one thing to say, let them, like casually in conversation, and it's another thing to actually feel that sense of like, no, yeah, just let them. And in this video, I want to talk about how you're supposed to actually do let them, because this is something I've spent my 20s pondering over. Before let them even existed, I was puzzling over how can I just like let people do their own thing and just, you know, let go of attachment to it. So let's talk about it. Welcome to Grow With Intention, the podcast for people who want to create a life that feels good. Let's talk about the mental moves behind let them that you can actually use in your day-to-day life to help you to let them. Starting with number one, turning your shoulds into preferences. The opposite of let them mode is must mode. Albert Ellis actually originally outlined the 3 musts that will make you miserable in his book, How to Stubbornly Refuse to Make Yourself Miserable. Number 1, I must perform well and win the approval of important people, otherwise I am inadequate. Number 2, you must treat me fairly and considerately and not unduly frustrate me, or else you're a rotten individual. Number 3, my life conditions must give me the things that I want and keep me from harm, or else life is unbearable and I cannot be happy. The opposite of let them is entering must mode. It is pouring your energy into this feeling of people should be other than they are. Life should not be the way that it is. It is ruminating about that one kind of rude comment that person dropped into conversation and letting that one comment ruin your peace and happiness in that moment. It's venting about that person for the 5th time and letting them live rent-free in your head. It's letting other people's behavior that you cannot control, influence your happiness when they're not even there in the room. So now that that's out of the way, let's go back to the very first practical way to let them, which is turning your shoulds and your musts into preferences. This is something that works really weirdly well for my brain, and whenever I do it, I feel my brain just kind of like soften a little. And I learned it from a guy called Fred Luskin, who I have an interview with. I'll link down below. So firstly, when you notice yourself in must mode, identify what your must is. Is it like they must treat me fairly, or they must be kind, or they must treat me the way that I would treat them and therefore it's unfair? Then you just want to turn your must into a casual, well, it would be nice if. So for example, you might be like, oh man, like it'd be really nice if that person, you know, spoke more kindly to me. That'd be so good. It'd make my days better. And at the same time, they're obviously not in the space where that's possible for them. And it is what it is. I can only focus on what I can control. I know this kind of sounds trite. It is just like a language change, but for some reason, this really works for me when other little language changes like that don't really work for me. Next time you find yourself letting someone else influence your happiness when they are not physically there, try saying to yourself like, oh, it'd be nice. But it is what it is. Because you are allowed to like hope and desire and like wish that something was a little bit better. There's nothing wrong with that. It only really becomes a problem that influences you when you kind of refuse to accept the way that they are. The next practical, actionable idea I want to talk about, it doesn't always work, but when it does work, it kind of feels like you've just thrown icy cold water in your face. And that is reassuring your ego, which sounds really bad, but I will explain it. When someone acts nasty, when someone acts weird towards you, your brain can go, okay, well, what does their behavior mean about me? What does it mean about me that they might feel comfortable to treat me this way? Are they right? And it can kind of threaten your sense of self. Let me give you an example. The other week I was at the post office and I was waiting in line, waiting my turn. The person in front of me got served and I walked right on up to the counter. Turned out I was in the wrong. There was a sign that said you should, you know, wait your turn. They'll call you up to go to the counter. But by that point, I like looked behind me. Everyone had shuffled up in line. Like I couldn't go back. And I was like, oh God, okay, I'll just, you know, wait really patiently and hopefully they're not grumpy. They were grumpy. The lady was super grumpy at me. I think she was just having a really bad day. And it probably is really annoying when people do stuff like that. But she was kind of rude. And immediately my brain went on red alert and I was like, ah. And I found myself in the car on the way home after that interaction, thinking about it and being like, oh God, like that was rude. I felt like I didn't deserve it. And as I found myself in must mode, I was like, okay, well, what am I making that person's behavior mean about me? Because clearly my sense of self is weirdly threatened. And then I realized like, oh, her behavior has me doubting whether I am like a considerate and kind person. And like maybe I was super rude in that situation because I made a mistake. And quickly that really snapped me out of it because I can think of 1,000 times when I have been a considerate, kind person. I don't think everyone can be a considerate, kind person all the time. And I don't want to claim that because I think that's bad energy. Everyone has bad moments. But in general, I'd say that I skew towards pretty considerate, pretty kind. And once I was able to reassure my ego of that and be like, no, wait, you're not a bad person, all is well, I was able to snap out of it. And there are some times where that particular mental activity doesn't really make sense in the context, but in that kind of context, it can make sense. Are you making someone else's behavior mean something about you? Are you really just needing some self-assurance in that moment that like, hey, you're a decent person, you're okay. Just because they were having a bad day doesn't mean that you're a bad person. For some reason, that can help me to step out of must mode really well, even though it's kind of ego-centered. The next idea goes without saying, but it's important to say it. Stop setting boundaries, start setting personal policies and self-limits. So here are some examples of ideas that people see as boundaries. My boundary is that you don't follow OnlyFans girls. My boundaries is that you don't run late to our catch-ups. My boundary is that you respect my time. Boundaries like that are naturally going to turn you into a more frustrated person that lives in must mode because it's totally focused on other people's behavior. Because people do annoying things and people are going to frustrate you, and that's not your problem. Your problem is what you do after the fact. So instead of, oh, my boundary is that my partner doesn't like OnlyFans girls' photos on Instagram, turn it into a preference, turn it into a personal policy of, if I notice that someone I'm dating likes OnlyFans girls, I'll let them know, don't love it. And if they do it again, I break up with them. Boundaries should be totally focused on you and your reaction to an event that you deem past your limits. Instead of a boundary like, I need people to respect my time, your boundary could be, if someone, runs over 20 minutes late when I hang out with them more than a few times in a row, we're chatting about it. I can't trust them to meet me places. I'm going to have to pick them up. Or, I have to make less plans with them. I would look into, if you immediately go to, I have to make less plans with them and you're super rigid about that kind of thing, it could be that you just don't feel connected and loved in that relationship. That's what I found with me. If I'm ever setting like super rigid boundaries of like, I just need to see that person less, it's because I don't feel connected and loved by that person. And that may be because of their behavior too, but I wouldn't put all the blame on their behavior, because sometimes I'll accept the same behavior in another person that I do feel really loved and accepted by, and that's a very confusing contradiction, also a real one. When you focus on limits and personal policies, life becomes so much easier. No one has to respect your time. No one has to be kind and good and respectful and trustworthy. But if they're not, like, it's okay for you to react to that in a way that's appropriate. The next practical way that you can let them is with a cord cutting visualization. And this is one that I would do in more intense circumstances. I mean, it is kind of woo-woo, and yet there's something about it that does something in your brain. This is something I would only do in like more intense situations, but sure, you can absolutely do it for the lady who was kind of rude to you that one time or made that weird comment that you're stewing on. Do a cord cutting visualization. So you're picturing you, the person. There's a cord that's connecting you, and that cord is full of all the energy that you're pouring into just ruminating and thinking about this person and like letting them affect your happiness. Maybe it's full of some of their energy too. And then you're going to set a little intention of sort of, I release this person. I release my energy that I poured into this person, and you want to either cut the cord, you want to dissolve it. The energy that you've poured in is going to flow on back to you. Maybe some of their energy is going to go on back to them. Maybe not. Up to you. This is helpful when it's like a person that has just really preoccupied your mind. Like maybe it's an ex. Maybe it's someone who constantly is still in your life and unfortunately you cannot get rid of them. Cut that little energy cord. Dissolve that energy cord. You can do it a few times. If you feel like the energy is still being poured into them, do it on the regular. Do it daily until it feels like that cord is dissolved. Sounds dumb, kind of works. And then the last very practical way to embrace let them, and this is I feel like the part that people miss when they talk about the let them theory. They're like, let them is just passive. But that's not really the idea of let them. Let them is just not obsessing and pouring energy into what you can't control, which is why the locus of control exercise can be really helpful. So the first part of the locus of control exercise is to be honest with yourself about what you're trying to control. Because you may not be thinking like, I want to control something, but like there's a part of you that absolutely would love to be able to control how thoughtful someone is, how considerate they are, and rightly so. Like, fair enough that you want people to be considerate, fair enough that you want people to be kind and thoughtful. You want people to not be nasty or be rude or whatever it is that you're struggling with. But like, be honest with yourself. Right now, I'm trying to control how thoughtful that person is. And immediately when you write this down, you're like, oh, that's fruitless. Like, trying to control how thoughtful someone is, not possible. Or maybe you're trying to control how someone perceives you. That's a big one too. Then you want to write down all the things that you cannot control. Other people's reactions, other people's moods, other people's tones. Not in your control. But within your control is your response to their words. How close in proximity you need to be with them when they're in their moods. Whether you delete or reply. How reactively you respond to them when they have a go at you. And the last part of this is just choosing one thing to act on from the things I can control column. So getting really clear on like, okay, when that one thing that I can't control happens, what am I going to control in myself? Like, what can I focus on controlling, and what can I practice my reactions? So maybe your boss is really nasty to you on a regular basis. How are you going to respond to that when it happens in the future? And pick just one thing that you're like, okay, next time that happens, I will do this. And I think this is an important part of the let them process that gets put to the side, because when you just let everyone and don't do anything and focus on what you can control, you're gonna easily lean into like learned helplessness of like, well, everyone just sucks and you just need to let them. You can't do anything about it. But like, you just can't do anything about their behavior. You can do something about your behavior. If you've listened to this and you're like, okay, I want to dive deeper into what I can actually do, what mental moves I can take to let them, here are my recs of the week. The first rec is Forgive for Good by Fred Luskin. And you might be like, I don't want to forgive. Forgiveness is really just let them. At least the way that Fred Luskin talks about forgiveness in this book. This is a great book if you've had someone that has really mucked you up. Like, you've had someone just do something to you, like, whoa, like I never knew that person was capable of hurting me in that way, or not considering me in that way, or being so thoughtless in their words towards me. Like, it could be an ex, it could be even an ex-boss, like, I don't know, someone that you were close with. Forgive for Good. Read this book. The second rec is How to Stubbornly Refuse to Make Yourself Miserable by Albert Ellis, which talks about a lot of these concepts, particularly focusing on like the musting of it all, which is like a helpful little element of let them. I appreciate you so much, and I'll see you soon.